was telling them earlier, and I was talking about the naturalness of death. And the preacher said, oh no, nobody wants to die. And I told him, this preacher wants, as a matter of fact, I desire death. Because that is when I go into the, well, yeah, we all say that, but we don't really mean that. And I'm just looking in the face of the preacher. I'm trying to figure him out, man. I mean, I'm trying to get into his psyche. Because I told him, I said, brother, I've done so many funerals, they're normative to me. I enjoy doing them, and I'm envious of the person. Dressed in your best suit, just laying there, ain't got to pay no more taxes, and just, come on, man. Trading places. Look at Matthew 19:26. Still looking at this idea that God can, before we get into our text. Matthew 19:26. These are very dynamic words. I don't know whether you ever look at these words and concentrated on them. And looking upon them, Jesus said to them, with men this is impossible. Something had just taken place. Jesus had said in verses 23 and 24 that it is easier for the camel to go through an eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. So his disciples ask him, well, who can be saved? Man, what? And Jesus answers and says, with men, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. Now, we know that Jesus was not talking about a needle that you thread and sew something with. The eye of a needle was a rock, a certain passageway that camels with a big load on their back would have difficulty squeezing through as they were in this commerce travel route. And so Jesus used that analogy, and he said, if a person trusts in their riches, I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but I think this is a perfect time. I've got to do it. When a person trusts in their riches, the riches doesn't get you to heaven. The money, the fame, all of that, none of that gets you to heaven. Absolutely none of it. As a matter of fact, when you die, you are neutralized. I thought about it when I thought about this person that recently died. I won't mention their name, but I thought about that they had the two top coroners in downtown LA perform his autopsy. Number one man, number two man. Now you have to know why, because while they perform an autopsy, cameras are going. Cameras are going and microphones are going, and they're looking at everything and everything. And I just would have loved to have been in the room to see the autopsy performed on this corpse. It was a corpse. To think about all the steps, all the moves, all that, all that. When you're dead and you're laying on that cold table with your fluids running out, you are equal with everyone else, and ain't nobody caring about you. And your soul has already been dispatched to another destination to give an account for the deeds that was done in the body that the coroner is going through bit by bit. That's why I just would have loved to have been a fly on the wall and say, whoop, whoop, whoop. Because that's where it's going to be when they got me laid out. And you know what the beautiful testimony is when you know that you've been walking with Christ, saying for your whole life, God can, God can, God can, God can. Through all the difficult times, God can, and not being caught up. Let me give the historical background of the writing. And these particular notes in this paragraph was taken from, because what I had to do is I said, I wanted to know how Athens was when Paul went through, because Athens is older than Rome. Athens as an ancient city, tremendously old. It is said that the Romans conquered the Athenians. That is not true. The Athenians conquered the Romans. No, not with their armies, but with their art, with their intellect, with their philosophies, with their democracy. The whole term democracy stems from this place that Paul visited some 2,000 years ago. But Athens was far older than 2,000 years. At the time when Paul went through Athens, and I read this from G. Campbell Morgan's anthology on the Book of Acts, a brilliant book that I have in my library, and it's good. You know what? Thank God I'm on vacation from teaching, because I can read more. And when you read more, you can preach better, Mark, because your mind is full of godly things and not full of Plato and Socrates and foolishness that means nothing. But as I was reading this stuff and enjoying again this refreshing look at Athens, I came upon some important things. Athens was known as the most sacred shrine of the fair humanities of paganism. It was known as the shrineful place where you can go and find your paganistic themes. If you were gay, they had a temple of gaydom. If you were an athlete, they had a temple for the gods of the athletic abilities. If you were into the culinary arts, they had a temple where you can go and become a glutton and eat yourself into frivolity. I mean, people would come from all over the Mediterranean world and come into Athens because here you could philosophize your life. You could figure out who you were and why you were, and have debates about it without fear of anyone coming to take you away. Athens was a society that was at the height of its intellectual perplexity, and Paul was there. Now, Paul, in contrast to this shrine of fair humanities of paganism, is the most faithful incarnation of the Christian temper and passion at that time. Paul is the great writer of all these epistles. He's running from Thessalonica, because if you go into it, I'll give you, well, I think it's yeah, let's go there now. It's Acts chapter 16, verses 37 through 40, and that'll show you how Paul got there. Acts chapter 16, verses 37 through 40. Because see, Paul, everywhere he went, he started a riot. Now he's running now when he ends in Athens. He's running. Now, so we want to start at, I'm looking at verse 37. But Paul said to them, they have beaten us in the public without trial, men who are Romans, speaking of himself and his group, and have thrown us into prison. And now they are sending us away secretly? No, indeed, but let them come themselves and bring us out. And the policemen reported these words to the chief magistrates, and they were afraid when they had heard that they were Romans. And they came and appealed to them, and when they had brought them out, they kept begging them to leave the city. And they went out of the prison and entered into the house of Lydia. And there they met some brethren, they encountered them and departed. And you can see this departure at the beginning of chapter 17, when they had traveled through Amphipolis and Apollonia. They came to Thessalonica, where there was a synagogue of the Jews. And so as you follow Paul, he is running. He is running when he gets into Athens, because everywhere he went, he was running for his life. This is what Christianity was. A lot of my contemporaries believe that this is where we're headed. But I'm